All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending. And it looks like my slides are up. Well, I'm very excited to be presenting, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, and that is that you are all my guinea pigs, because this is the trial for the presentation I'm giving at the past Global Summit, which obviously you can see from the slides. And so this is fresh material. It's fairly unrehearsed, new material. And this is the first time that I'll be presenting it. So thank you for being part of the QA team. So I tell you, somehow I guess I get the award for campy session titles. I did a presentation last year at PASS, which was titled "Bringing Sexy Back," about visual report design, and one of the sessions that I had submitted this year, which wasn't accepted, was a Paradise by the Dashboard. So anyway, that theme seems to be working for me. So and I don't think we need to worry about cell phones. So let me just introduce myself quickly, and then we'll get on to more important things. So a little bit about me. That's me on one of my better days. I'm Paul Turley. I'm a BI mentor with Solid Q, and I am coming to you from sunny Vancouver, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest. It actually has stopped raining today, and it's a little after 7 p.m. in the evening here. My blog is SQLServerBIblog.com, and I do keep a copy of all of my presentations, all of the slide decks on my blog. And so this is not there yet, but will be in a couple of weeks around the past Global Summit. So I actually started out, my first computer was a Tandy Radio Shack TRS-80. So that I think that dates me a little bit, going back to 1979. But that's when I first fell in love with computing. I actually graduated from that computer to a Commodore 64. So that was my first experience with computing, actually my first experience with programming. So that's kind of a reference point for a few of you. First job that I had in the IT industry was for a company called Metasoft that made medical billing software. I became an independent contractor, consultant, and I did some work for Hewlett-Packard. In '96, I became certified with Microsoft as a trainer, solution developer, and an MCP, and so I've been certified with Microsoft since '96. I went to work for a few companies. I worked for myself for quite a while, but in 2002 I worked for a company in the Seattle area called SQLsoft Plus that really got me started with SQL Server. And then became a consultant for Hitachi Consulting, became an architect and manager for Hitachi Consulting. And then I was awarded the Microsoft MVP Award for SQL Server in 2009, and I'm actually very excited that my fifth-year renewal just arrived today. And in 2011, I went to work for Solid Q. I've contributed to a few books as a lead author, contributing author, just because I kind of traded my sanity in for book authoring, just to kind of keep my name out there and keep my skills fresh. So that's me, that's who I am, that's what I do. I focus entirely on BI and mainly on the Microsoft stack around SQL Server. Now, during the summit, I actually plan to have an interactive discussion with the audience and actually use a Power Pivot and Power View based tool to visualize where the audience is from, but that tool's not quite ready, and we're not quite in a mode where we can use that. That's what that slide is all about. So the description of this session, I'm not going to read to you, but I'm going to call out a few things that I want to talk about. In Bill Gates' book, The Road Ahead, he mentioned that Microsoft's goal was to create great software that would allow people to have access to information anytime, any place, and on any device. I think that Microsoft has made inroads to meet that goal, but they're really making a lot of very innovative changes, and we've seen a lot of changes in the way that BI is delivered. We've seen a lot of changes in the way that people get to solutions, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the tools that Microsoft currently offers and where some of those tools may be going and how you can use them in a mobile environment. And we'll also talk about the importance of the semantic model layer in BI and how that will help you to deliver a mobile solution. So what makes a solution mobile? We now have these devices. We have these tablet devices. We've got our phones. Then, of course, we've got desktop devices, and we can get to content on all of these devices. So what is it truly that makes a solution mobile? Well, at the entry level, a lot of vendors will say, yeah, well, our solution, our BI solution, our reporting solution, our application is mobile capable because you can view it in a browser. And so, you know, on your phone, you could open up a browser and you go to a website, and therefore it's mobile. But that's really kind of the entry point. I think the next tier is that it's optimized for screen size and for navigation on a smaller screen. Kind of moving up the tier, it's tactile, it's responsive and interactive. And then I think at the top, and a concept that I think that we can thank Apple for really kind of bringing to the masses is that it supports a user experience that people understand. I think that my teenage daughters probably understand better than I do, is that there's a certain experience that people expect. So they expect touch gestures, they expect this tablet user interface experience that people have become accustomed to. So as we step back and look at the Microsoft platform and the opportunities that we have to build mobile BI on the current Microsoft platform, we can step back and look at the visualization options, reporting options, and BI visual tools that we have, and start at the top with Excel. It's interesting that I've been building reports and dashboards for users for a long time, and it doesn't matter what we create for them, whether it's you know, a table with KPI scorecards and drill down capability, whether we use charts and gauges and make it a very highly visual and interactive experience. At the end of the day, they always want it in Excel. And there was kind of an epiphany moment, I think, at Microsoft a few years ago where they were creating all of these tools that would create a great visual experience, let us express data in a lot of interesting ways, but people really wanted to be in Excel. And so Excel has really kind of become the center of the BI universe at Microsoft. Those of us who are doing things outside of Excel kind of questioned that and thought, well, gosh, you know, I mean, Excel is just the spreadsheet program. Why should we be using that? But that's where the 95% is. That's where the masses want to see their data. And that's why Excel has become such a center of the BI universe at Microsoft. And so if we could enable Excel capability, pivot tables, drill down, charts and slicers on a mobile device in an experience that works well for mobile users, then that would be ideal for a lot of people. What's the requirement to get there? Right now, in order to experience Excel on a mobile device outside of Microsoft Excel, that requires SharePoint Enterprise Edition and Excel services. The capability is that in SharePoint, Excel services, which is really just Excel running behind SharePoint, renders to HTML. And it renders basic Excel features and functionality, which I'll demonstrate here. It's compatible with most devices. It's compatible with the iPad. It's compatible with most phone devices. It's compatible with an Android tablet. And a lot of the interaction that we've grown to depend on in Excel, like slicers and filters, works well on mobile devices. Now, is it as tactile? Does it have pinch zoom? No, it doesn't. It wasn't designed for that, but it's been adapted and it works pretty well. So reporting services is the next tool that we typically think about when creating dashboards and creating reports. Now, we know that reporting services wasn't designed with this tactile, dynamic kind of interactivity in mind. But the reporting services product team put a lot of effort into adapting the rendering extensions in the 2012 product so that they would work on different browsers. So in 2008 R2, we got a lot of new visuals. We got some, great, gauges and spark lines and a lot of cool stuff that that really kind of took visuals to the next level. But unfortunately, they would only work in IE, so there was limited rendering capabilities. In 2012, they expanded that, and now reporting services reports will work well in Safari on the iPad and in other browsers. So again, the capability is that reporting services renders to HTML. Of course, it's capable of rendering to PDF and to some other formats, but we typically think of reporting services reports as HTML. Again, compatible with most devices and browsers. The story is about the same as Excel services. And again, it's a good mobile experience. I wouldn't say that it's a stellar mobile experience, but it's good. And then we have PowerView. And PowerView has kind of become the mainstay go-to demonstration application for BI. That's what we see a lot of the keynotes and a lot of the Microsoft dog and pony shows. And PowerView is architected to display data through Silverlight. And it's available either embedded into Excel 2013 as a desktop application, or it's available in SharePoint through SQL Server 2012 and SharePoint Enterprise. Today, it depends on Silverlight, but Microsoft has been working on retooling PowerView very aggressively, and we've seen a glimpse of that now in the new Power BI offering, which we're going to take a look at here pretty quick. And so right now, on-premise, PowerView requires Silverlight, which means it requires a desktop browser. It'll work on a Surface Pro, but not a Surface RT. It doesn't work on an iPad. And so that brings us to the next generation of Microsoft BI, which is currently being enabled through Office 365. And this is called Power BI. This was just announced at the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Summit just a couple of months ago. Currently in preview, which means that you can sign up for it right now. You just go to powerbi.com, which will redirect you to the Office 365 site. You can sign up and you can actually work with Power BI. And so PowerView is a central part of Power BI, both PowerView and Excel services. And it is a subset of the features that we have in SharePoint on-premise today. We're going to see more features added, probably pretty aggressively. But right now we have some basic features that will work in any browser through HTML5. And of course they'll work through the Silverlight interface as well. And so we have a native Surface app, which will run on a Surface RT or Surface Pro. We have HTML5 support that will work in practically any browser and on most any device. And this isn't official, but we know that there is support coming for other devices. And Microsoft is very aggressively working on that, and that's about as much information as I think we can share on that topic. But this is what Microsoft is putting a lot of their effort into. So I'm going to just kind of gloss over this slide real quick, but this is really more for reference. So Excel pivot tables and visuals work well, obviously, on the desktop and through SharePoint through HTML. Power Pivot is more of a semantic modeling tool, and then Power View right now is available through Silverlight, but then through the Power BI offering you're going to see more capabilities there. And then there are some other tools that are part of the Power BI experience and part of that offering through Office 365. Power Query is an Excel add-in, which means that it runs natively in Excel. That's not really a mobile experience. Power Map, again, is an Excel add-in only, and so it's not intended to be a tablet-compatible or mobile app. And then the new Q&A feature, which is the natural language query feature, currently requires Silverlight, much like Power View does today. Okay, so what does Power BI look like behind the scenes? Right now, we have the capability to create Power Pivot models, and those models are encapsulated in an Excel file, in Excel 2013, and then that Power Pivot model with visuals, which include both Excel visuals and Power View visuals, can be uploaded to the cloud in Power BI and hosted through SharePoint Online through an Office 365 subscription. The data, when that's released, we understand that there will be a synchronization feature, much like we have in Power Pivot today on-premise, which will allow you to synchronize data through those Power Pivot models. This suggests that we will have the ability to synchronize data using an automatic refresh in the future, but that's not yet available. Another option that you have through the cloud is to use Azure services, which may include Azure Websites, Azure VM. Of course, anything you can do in a virtual machine, you can do in Azure VM. But we also have Azure SQL Reporting, which essentially is reporting services in the cloud. And your data source for any of those reports would also be in the cloud. But that's another option. Okay. So you can see that I need to add one of my animations, my little question mark shows up over there. So what are our options for on-premise mobile BI today? So if we choose not to use Office 365, if it's not feasible for us to use Power Pivot and upload that to SharePoint services, we want an on-premise solution today, using the SharePoint stack, we can utilize all of these capabilities that I've talked about. Excel and Excel services, which can be visualized through a web browser. Reporting services, which of course can be visualized through a web browser. And then Power View, which can be visualized in Internet Explorer or a browser that supports Silverlight. The data sources for any of those visuals can be Power Pivot models, they can be tabular models, they can be multidimensional models, which of course we've had in the past. If you choose not to use SharePoint, then that limits our options a bit. And so that gives us reporting services as really kind of the go-to tool. And then the data sources, of course, for reporting services could be tabular models, that could be multidimensional models. But we don't have the ability to use a Power Pivot model like we would if we were hosted in SharePoint. So that brings us to using third-party tools. Microsoft has always had a very strong investment in enabling partners to build tools on top of their platform. And we're seeing a number of very rich mobile tools and very rich visual tools that you can use on mobile devices. And I'm going to show you one tool as an example of some of these tools that work well on top of the Microsoft ecosystem. And so in a solution where we're going to use the Microsoft platform, we're using Microsoft data sources, and then a third-party tool to visualize data, that data could be in a Power Pivot model hosted through SharePoint, kind of deferring to the panel on the left. It could be tabular models, which really is an analysis services database, a little easier to design than cubes. It's a newer, more compelling technology, maybe a little faster under some conditions because it runs in memory. And then, of course, we have multidimensional models, and we always have relational SQL. Okay, so that brings us to the demo portion. I need to do a quick time check. So I'm going to jump over to a server environment. So what you're looking at right now is a server where I have, let me jump back over here. I have a tabular model. I've got a few tabular models actually. I have the Contoso sample data, which is a very rich set of sales data that is available from Microsoft. And then I have the AdventureWorks DW tabular model, which is what we're looking at right here. So what I've done is I've enhanced the AdventureWorks model, and I've deployed that out to analysis services. So here you can see that I have analysis services installed as a tabular instance, and I've deployed a copy of this model out to that tabular instance in analysis services. And I can connect to that using a variety of tools. Here you can see that I've written some queries. I'm writing MDX against tabular simply because it's a little easier to do, and using the tool that I'm going to demonstrate, it was a little easier to use MDX. So let me do this. Before we jump into this environment, I actually want to jump over to my Surface tablet. I'm going to pull this over here. So you're actually looking at my Surface Pro, which is actually sitting over on the right side, and I am using a tool called Splash Top to be able to look at that screen. And I'm actually going to be interacting with my tablet, though. So as I go to my desktop, or as I go to the tablet desktop here, I'm actually interacting and touching my Surface tablet. There you can see Julie tweeting about our session today. And I'm going to jump over to my Office 365 subscription site. So you can see that I have a SharePoint site. This is in the cloud. This is my my Power BI trial preview, and you can see that in this library I've actually uploaded a number of the samples that Microsoft has available, and I've also created a. Let me jump over to my desktop here. I've created my own Power Pivot model, which I'm actually going to open and show you. I'll pull that over to the monitor that I'm sharing. So this is based on the Contoso data. And we'll jump over to Power Pivot so we can actually take a look at that Power Pivot model. This is a fairly typical sample set of data. We'll jump over to the diagram view so you can see how these tables are related to each other. A point that I wanted to make is that in a mobile BI solution, we want to simplify both the design experience and the user's navigation experience as much as possible. And to do that, we want to do as much of the heavy work here in the semantic model as possible, whether that's a tabular semantic model, which we could create in Power Pivot, or in SSDT, and create a Power Pivot or a tabular model, and then deploy that to analysis services, or create a multi-dimensional model using SSDT and deploy that out to a multi-dimensional analysis services server. It doesn't matter. We're going to take all of our business rules. We're going to create all of our navigational experiences, our KPIs, our drill downs, our calculations. All of that is going to be designed into the model. So here you can see some hierarchies where we are enabling drill down features. We're seeing in the sales table here, I have all of my calculations and all of my measures, and we may have KPIs in there as well. So that's my semantic model. And I have visuals. This is an Excel pivot table where I'm using conditional formatting, and I'm using data bars. Here I have some charts. So I've got a column chart. I've got a column chart combined with a line chart. So I've just used Excel to create these visuals where I can interact using slicers, just using standard Excel functions. And I can make that look a little less like Excel, which I've done in this sheet here, just by simply turning off the grid lines and turning off the headers and things, so that a user looking at that, aside from the ribbon up here really wouldn't even know that that's Excel. And then I'm going to, I'm going to use Power View, and should see my Power View report show up there. And again, this is simply based on that same model. So I've taken this workbook and I've uploaded that to my Power BI site. And I'm going to open up that workbook, and you can see that Excel Services is running. And it's going to give me a little note here and say you've used a feature that may not work exactly the same way that it does in Excel. But my user looking at this is not really thinking that they're using Excel. They're looking at a dashboard. And I'm going to be able to use my slicers and interact with this data, so you'll see that refresh. And so I've got all of that capability that I'm used to seeing in Excel. I could drill down. Let's drill down into Australia. Well, let's jump over to a Power View report so we can see one of the Power View reports that I had created in Excel. And again, I'm on a tablet over a wireless network. This is coming over the internet because this is hosted up in Office 365. And let's jump over to, well, we can use one of the slicers here. Choose a year where we have some data. Let me jump over to my sales quantity report, which is a little more interactive. And so you can see that I can use the different slicers. And each of the visuals are also interactive. And so when I select one, it's going to cross-drill and slice by one of the others. And so that's a good experience. If you're accustomed to using Power View in a SharePoint environment and you have all of the latest patches installed, you're probably used to seeing things like maps and matrices that have drill-down capability, KPIs, hierarchies, pie charts. Some of those visuals aren't yet available. Now, let's let me. I'll understand that I'm not showing my webcam, or I am showing my webcam. Julie, I didn't quite get the message whether my webcam is up or not.
Yes, your webcam is up.
Okay, great. Well, then let's jump to the same site on my iPad. Okay, I wasn't quite sure about that. So when I use my iPad, rather than the Silverlight-based experience that we just had, I'm getting a little glare there. Let me move light out of the way, see if I can. So when I open that, it's a little hard to see. Sorry about the contrast. So there we go. We'll just tip that a little bit. So you're seeing the same thing here on my iPad, but as I interact with it, it's not quite as tactile. All of the same functionality works. But the reason that it's just a little less tactile is because that is not being rendered through Silverlight. Let me move over to one of my Power View reports that I think exemplifies this a little bit better. And this is being rendered as HTML5. We'll wait for that to come up. There we go. So I do get a little tip that comes up over here on the right, and it says, just by the way, you're using the HTML5 version of Power View. We'll go ahead and close that. But we still have the ability to interact, and the user still has a pretty decent experience. Okay. So that's Power BI. That's essentially the Microsoft BI offering online right now through Office 365. We're going to see the feature set expanded as time goes on. And I think one of the biggest questions that people are asking right now is, okay, well, this is great that it's available in the cloud, and I can use Excel and Power Pivot and Power View and Excel services. That's all fine and dandy, but we are working in an environment where we can't put our data up in the cloud, whether it's because of compliance or security restrictions. There are some file size limits with Office 365, so maybe that's a restriction. What can we do on premise? And our options are somewhat limited. Are we going to have an on-premise solution? And there is not an official answer from Microsoft. I think we can assume that there will be an on-premise offering, but that's not official. Microsoft is all about cloud first right now. Not necessarily because I think they're just trying to force us to go to the cloud. It's easier for them to deploy solutions to the cloud, and so that's where they're going first. They'll test it there. They'll make sure that everything works, and then on-premise capabilities will follow. So I think, and again, in my opinion, I think we're going to see that sometime down the road. Now, I'd like to transition to the next topic, which is using third-party tools. So there are a number of excellent third-party visualization tools that work very well on top of the Microsoft platform. And I'm not selling or advocating any one particular tool. We've worked with a number of clients to help implement tools from companies like Pyramid Analytics, from Strategy Companion. There are a lot of component suites that have excellent visual tools like Infragistics and Telerik and Component Art, who have done a really good job in building things that we can program and build into applications. I want to show you one in particular that I'm actually quite impressed with visually, and I'm going to jump over to a tool called DataZen. And actually what I want to do is start from the beginning. I'll take you to my desktop. We'll go ahead and just launch the DataZen app, which takes you back to the same place. DataZen is a very new tool. It was introduced earlier this year, and it's developed by the folks at Component Art, who have been making .NET components for a long time. I think they knew what they were doing. This tool doesn't have all of the features that you would expect to see or that you may be used to seeing in reporting services. So there are some limitations, but visually it's a very stunning tool, and they've done some very impressive things. And so I wanted to kind of show what we can do by leveraging the capabilities of a semantic model and then build a fairly simple dashboard on top of that. So there are a number of samples here that they provide, which are actually stored in Excel spreadsheets, but I wanted to make this real, and so these are some dashboards that I've created based on the semantic model that I showed you earlier. So this is actually connected to my server. We're actually connecting to live data over a wireless network through the DataZen server that I have hosted on another machine. I'm going to open up a dashboard that I actually created earlier today called Current Sales. So this is connecting to my tabular model. And one of the features that I actually didn't turn on that I probably should have for my demo was to tell the client tool to cache the data so that it comes up a little bit faster. But this is a live data. We're actually reading, this is a live demo. We're actually reading live data. Another thing that I'm going to do here in demo mode is I realized that there's a capability of this tool that only works when my system date matches a date in my data set. So I'm actually going to do a little demo magic here, and I'm going to change my system date, so bear with me just a minute. I remember seeing somebody do this on stage once, and it completely blew up their demo. But fortunately, I practiced this one. So I've set my system date back, and I'll explain why here in a minute. So I'm going to jump over to the DataZen dashboard again. So that was current sales. So the AdventureWorks data that I'm using goes up through 2008, so I needed to change my system date so that I could actually show data as if it were current for that period of time. So as this dashboard opens and it reads data out of my tabular model, you'll see that along the top there's this really cool timeline feature that allows you to actually drill down into time. So we started with the year, and I'm drilling down into 2007. And I'm going to choose a product subcategory so you can see that it's interactive. I can change my region. We'll change that to the United States. Oop, that didn't change for whatever reason. Let's change that back. All right, so you can see that we have a heat map over on the right side, and it's completely interactive. So I'm just using my finger, and I can go through and I can investigate any of these visuals. It's a really, really cool and very tactile, very quick visual experience. And as I touch any of these dates, you can see that they drill down and they expand utilizing the hierarchies that I've defined in my semantic model. So it's a really, really nice experience. Now, let me show you the design experience. I just flicked up to get the charms on the bottom of the screen. I'm actually going to go into edit mode. And I want to show you that after I had defined this dashboard, the number of really, really cool visuals that you can just drag and drop onto this surface, including KPI indicators, scorecards, trend arrows, all kinds of neat things. But one of the things that I really liked here is that after I designed the dashboard intended for tablet view, I can go over here and say, well, I'd also like to create a phone version of that. And so I then just kind of rearrange the visuals that I want into a smaller format. And because of the screen limitations, I want to minimize some things. I question whether that heat map is really an appropriate visual. In fact, let's say that we want to do something else here. So I'm going to remove the heat map. And so I just come up to the corner here, and I'll say that I want to delete that. And jump back over to my, let's see. I got lost here. Hold on, let me switch back to master mode. Well, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, so you can see that I've created a phone version, and then I simply say I want to publish that to the server. So any updates that I make, I just simply say, here's the address of my server. I've already logged in, so it's not going to prompt me for my credentials. And now I'll pull up my Windows Phone, and I'll go to my DataZen app. Right there. And we get a nice simple interface that shows all of my my dashboard. So I'm going to jump down here, and there's my current sales dashboard. Go ahead and open that up. And you'll see that here in portrait mode, that's going to come up very much like what we saw here. And I still have the same drill down capabilities on the dates. And I still have the ability to slice. And then you can see my chart there. Now, what's really kind of cool is if I rotate it, it adapts. So it just rearranges everything so that it fits. This is a really, really interactive experience. And we'll go ahead and go back and just take a look at some of the other things that you can do with this. Now, again, I just want to underscore that there are a number of tools that have similar capabilities. And though I'm actually pretty impressed with this tool, and we're evaluating it for a couple of our clients, you know, tools from companies like Tableau Software, of course, they're recognized as a very strong leader. Push BI, there are what's the other one? Spotfire also has a very good tool. There are a number of very good tools, and they all have pros and cons. And so I would strongly suggest that as you're evaluating third-party tools, that you really kind of look at your requirements and kind of step back and look at the capabilities of each of these tools. But a lot of these tools work well on top of the Microsoft stack. So here you can again see that I can select a range of dates. One thing that I really like here is you have a number of different date variances. So we can say, all right, I want to look at last month, I want to look at last quarter, I want to look at the last 6 months, and then I can hover over and see each of these. There's also some geographic capabilities that are really nice. So if I go to this sample where we have names of geographic areas, like here we have the state map, you can see that we can have measures that are associated with different regions, and that works with continents, countries, states, provinces, and I believe that in a future version you'll have the ability to actually define your own regions, create your own shapes, and import those shapes from standard formats like Esri and Tigerline. So, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and drop back. So I think one of the great learnings that has come out of designing BI solutions for mobile is that you can't deliver everything on a small device. Less is more, and I think that's what I wanted to say on this slide, is that the natural kind of order of the way that we typically build solutions is we go to our users and we ask them what they want, and they give us a whole list, and then we try to deliver that. And then we deliver something, and then we ask for feedback, and they ask for more, so we give them more. And that paradigm simply doesn't work. We have to deliver top priority features, have to keep things very simple, and you just simply can't keep adding more features. And it takes a lot of experience, and it takes sometimes not putting a developer in front of a user. It takes putting someone who understands the business and understands focusing on goals and focusing on business value to really kind of vet out what the business really needs and then help articulate those requirements to the folks that will be designing solutions. And so the first layer really is to take all of those requirements and simplify them and build a semantic model that brings the most important things to the surface. Then we design an interface that, again, keeps things very, very simple. And maybe it takes iteration to get there. But a lot of tools like the DataZen tool and PowerView, I think we've also seen, is very, very simple, is very easy to use. But one reason that it's simple and easy to use is that it just isn't really feature-laden. I just had an experience this week with a client who is making the transition from traditional reporting services, Cognos, and Crystal reports, to kind of the new era of BI. And we've sat down and we've put PowerView in front of them and said, you know, I think that we could build this with PowerView. I think we could give you this nice interactive, simple experience, and it would be a much richer experience. It would be much easier for you on a tablet device or even on your desktop to be able to browse and interact with data. And as we were gathering those requirements, they said, well, okay, well, we need a from date and a to date. And then I think that it was start date and end date. So we need to define a date range with a start date and an end date. So we added the start date and the end date to the filters in PowerView, and the filters are sorted alphabetically. and they say, oh, well, that's not going to do. You've got to sort those in the right order. And they had actually rejected using PowerView because we couldn't get the filters in the right order. And it could have been as simple as maybe changing the name of the field or helping the user understand that the business value that they could get by using a simple tool outweighs something as silly as being unhappy because the filters were in the wrong order. So we have to help users kind of change that thinking, help them understand that we just can't keep layering features on top of these things. Users expect to interact with their reports, their dashboards, and their BI visual tools. And so using tools that do that will help, but you know, we can use tools like reporting services and Excel services that as kind of secondary tools. They don't give us that real tactile, interactive experience quite as easily. Encapsulate logic in the semantic model. Aggregations, calculations, hierarchies, key performance indicators, formatting for client tools that support and inherit the formatting. One size doesn't fit all, so you need to be meticulous about evaluating tools. So that's actually the end of my presentation. We've wrapped up about 10 minutes early, so I do appreciate your attention. I think we can take some time for questions, and Julie, I'll turn this back over to you as facilitator to help us deal with questions and feedback.
Okay, no problem. So one of the questions that I have here is, with the DataZen, is it possible to change the color, or is it a preset themes?
There are a number of themes, yes, and actually that's actually a feature of DataZen that I'm actually quite impressed with. And so yes, there are a number of color themes where you have a coordinated background, different fonts, and different colors. Yes.
Okay, that's nice. And then also with I guess I know that we're talking about mobile BI here, but if they actually, so if users sort of go through a dashboard and they want to capture that information and then share it with someone, is it possible to do that with a lot of the mobile BI applications that we have right now? So, say for example, with the Power View on the Office 365 or the DataZen application that we saw earlier.
So, so I'm gonna very purposely not talk about DataZen because I don't want to appear to be promoting or selling that tool. I used it as an example of one of many tools. I could have used Strategy Companion or another tool that I'm also quite impressed with. And so I would say go to their website and you can look at the feature list. So, but let's talk about the Microsoft stack. So this is a very common ask. A user interacts with some data, they discover something, and then they want to share that. So in the SharePoint experience, let's say that a user has used Excel. So they've interacted with Excel through Excel services, and now they want to capture the state of what they're viewing. And so, yes, it's certainly possible to export what the user sees on the screen and capture that in another copy of Excel. It's actually very easy for the user to download or actually to use the same data source in Excel and capture that in a workbook that they would then own and then publish up to SharePoint. So I think that Excel is probably the tool that users would typically go to if they want to continue working with data after they've discovered and viewed and worked with it. Now let me kind of sidelight and twist that question a little bit, because this is a very common question that I get from a lot of my clients. A user is using Power View. They've interacted and visualized their data, and then they want to export it to Excel. And the answer, Julie, as you know, is no, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that this comes down to expectation management. I don't think that Microsoft is going to see every one-off request like that and say, oh my gosh, we need to go add an export to Excel button because people are asking for that. The right answer might be, and I'm not saying that that's the definitive answer, but the right answer might be, well, go ahead and use Excel to connect to that same semantic model, visualize it in a pivot table, and get to that same result, which might take you 5 or 10 minutes. So, you know, exporting to Excel is not always the right answer.
Right, yeah. Yeah. What else do we have here? So, I guess another question that I have here is about security and mobile BI. What are your thoughts on that? Is it mature already? Yeah. Is it mature already with the Microsoft offerings? Is it already mature? And how does it compare to, say, for example, another mobile BI applications?
So, my point earlier about doing all of the work in the semantic model, I think kind of helps make the point that you need to protect your data. And that may be, if you look at your security requirements, it may be as simple as allowing some users to get to all the data and not allowing other users to get to all the data, or it may be as complex as being able to limit individual rows or members of data to individual users. So for example, if I have a sales team and I have customers in different regions, I only want my West Coast sales representative to be able to see West Coast customers and not see customers or sales results from other sales representatives, then I need to protect that data at a row level in that customer table. I can do that using analysis services, either multidimensional or tabular. The mechanism is very much the same. And so using the older technology, multidimensional, in a cube, we can define roles, and then we can define member level or row level security by mapping the user ID to a key in a table, so it's all data driven. We can do the same thing in a tabular model by using a similar DAX expression that also binds the user ID to a key through a mapping table, and that's all based on different roles. So we might have a manager role where they have visibility to all of the sales, and we have representative roles that are restricted down to the region, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so that's possible through a tabular model. However, it's not possible through Power Pivot. In Power Pivot, we either allow people to browse the data or we don't allow people to browse the data.
Right. That sounds good. So yeah, thank you so much for the presentation and for answering the questions. We've got a couple of minutes left here, so I'd like to see if anyone else might have a few more questions. Let's see here. I don't think anyone has any questions, so yeah, I'd like to thank you, Paul. That was a great presentation. I learned quite a lot from it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at PASS Summit.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone letting me practice for PASS Summit. So
actually, sorry, there's one question. Let's see. Just a thank you note.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, and so like I said, after PASS, or at least after the beginning of PASS, this presentation will be up on my blog, and I would encourage you to visit my blog, SQL Server BI blog. talkinbout.com, and you can interact there and ask questions, and we can talk through the blog site as well. So thank you, Julie.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. And everyone, I will post the recording on our website, bi.sqlpass.org. So if you want to check it out, I think I'll post this probably after the PASS Summit. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.